It's time for a Drummer Nation. Rich Redmond is based in Nashville and Los Angeles, where his versatile drumming is the sound behind many of today's top talents. Rich has performed with Kelly Clarkson, Garth Brooks, Cornell, and scores of others. With Jason Aldean, Rich has recorded 23 #1 singles. He's been on Leno, Conan, Ellen, and Jimmy Fallon, as well as Saturday Night Live and the Grammys. Rich was voted Best Country Drummer and Best Clinician by Modern Drummer and Best Country Drummer by Drum Magazine. Rich loves to mentor and teach and is a member of the production team New Voice Entertainment.
Introducing the Star Festival snare drum from Gary Astrich, a handcrafted and precision replica of the rarest and most iconic of drums, Ringo Starr's 1963 Ludwig Jazz Festival. Concepted and handcrafted by Gary Astrich, drum historian to the Ringo Starr organization, each instrument is authorized and hand-signed by Ringo Starr and will benefit his charity, the Lotus Foundation.
To share with the public, put a price tag on it that would help something important to Ringo and his wife Barbara, which is their Lotus Foundation charity.
I have this thing inside me. I hate being restricted so much. If I have an idea in my head, I just want to do it. It's not just with drum, it's with everything, my other hobbies and stuff. It's like miserable when you can't put it down. It was like, man, I've got all this music in me, I've got this idea in me, and I can't get it out. That's, I think, why I've pushed myself so far.
These Regal Tip Session sticks feel great. They kind of put me in the mindset of a thinner and lighter 5A. I like the narrow taper in the body of the stick, and the small wood tip is great for nice cymbal articulation. This stick could be used to play a lot of different genres of music. Go to regaltip.com, order a pair, or go to your nearest music store. Pick up a pair and let us know exactly how you feel about the stick.
Rich Redmond, thank you so much for doing my show. Welcome to Drummer Nation. How are you, my friend?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, and congratulations on a couple of things. First of all, you covered Modern Drummer, December edition. That's got to be a big thrill, wasn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, I was reading Modern Drummer in like 1980, and I actually went back and bought the old issues before that, so I've never missed an issue since. So it was like I think every drummer dreams of that, so it was very cool.
It's our version of being on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Yeah, sure is.
Rarely going to happen if you're a drummer, right? So congratulations on that. And then I just coincidentally happened to see your interview with Joe Bergamini on the Sabian Education Network. Very good job there, man. Joe's got a great thing going, and you're so eloquent and passionate, articulate about this business. I'm looking forward to getting going here. So I don't like to spend a lot of time on early years, but a little bit. I read you're from Milford, Connecticut by way of El Paso, Texas.
Right.
But the cool thing about it was that you were very active in your high school music scene.
Yeah, very much. I started playing in 76, 77 in Milford, Connecticut. And then when my dad got relocated to a job position in Texas, El Paso, Texas, the furthest point in West Texas you could possibly get, when it was I was 11, 1981. And I quickly got involved in the 5th grade band there. And it was awesome because I was like a little bit ahead of the other kids because I already knew how to hold the sticks and all that. And I recommend that for any teachers out there. Get your students involved in the school band program. They're learning how to warm up a bass drum and crash a pair of cymbals and play the glockenspiel and tune the timpani and all that stuff. And it's all good teamwork skills and all that kind of stuff. So I had a blast doing that, man.
Memphis Drum Shop is the world's premier provider of percussion instruments. With 6 showrooms of gear, mycymbal.com, the Memphis Gong Chamber, and a first-rate repair department, turn to Memphis Drum Shop for all your percussion needs. Seated at the drums, pressure on the tailbone, lower back, and hip joints can lead to pain. Only Carmichael drum thrones are scientifically designed to relieve and prevent discomforts associated with prolonged sitting. Carmichael Thrones, we got your back.
My new site, Stanton Moore Drum Academy, is the perfect online drum learning platform for any level drummer to learn how to play the drums the same way I did, with the advantage of having me road test the material on hundreds of stages, countless clinics, lessons, and master classes, and dozens of studio sessions every year. On the site, you'll find over 13 hours of video, dozens of written lessons, and fresh material gets added all the time. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you as subscribers on the site, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
I think good life skills, plus you learn to read and follow a conductor and get along with people and all those things.
For sure.
I think we're all good advocates of good education. And we're all products of it, too. We'll get to that in a second. Were you a drum set guy way back then, or did you start on the snare drum?
As soon as I was my teacher, Jack Berge, in 76, 77, he had me, he would write out, zhap, 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 blah, blah, like little Sousa type things that I would read. And then he was like, all right, grab that Joel Rothman book. And I had the Encyclopedia of Rock and Roll Drumming. I had one kick drum, one snare drum, and a little cymbal. And I would, I'd bash along and read the rhythms, and I was playing along with, Kiss records and Queen records and all that kind of stuff. And it was great. It really was.
Great. So you ended up going to North Texas State, or University of North Texas as it became known.
Yeah.
You were there with some great other kids too, right? Who were some of the other drummers there when you were there?
Yeah, I was there with Rob Afsharian, who's just like a staple of the art music scene in Michigan. Let's see, Blair Cinta, who went on to be a great studio musician and play with Alanis Morissette, and Jim White was hanging around, who's now teaching, I believe, at University of Northern Colorado.
Yes.
We were all studying with Soph. Jason Sutter had just left and got to start his master's degree over at Miami, and I was in school with like Jim Riley and
Ari Honig, maybe.
Yeah, and Craig Pilove that is playing with Frankie Valli now. So we were all kind of there, just kind of like cutting our teeth and playing gigs in Dallas and supporting each other and having a great time.
That's a great situation. I went there in the early 70s, and I think anybody who went in any year, there or Berkeley or Northern Colorado, some of the great schools, will all attest to the fact that you learn as much from your peers as you do from the teachers.
Yeah, they would come around and lock the practice rooms at midnight, and we would all stop playing at like 11:58
and hide out,
just freeze for like 2 minutes, and then we would practice into the wee hours. And the guy next to me would sound like Mel Lewis. The guy next to me was Keith Carlock. The guy that Ari Honig was playing melodies on his drums, and one guy sounded like Weckel, one guy sounded like Tommy Aldridge, and we just all just really soaked up and recommended each other for gigs in Dallas. So we would drive into Dallas and be like, hey, you should do this horn band gig and do this smooth jazz gig, and we just had a blast.
I think that's a good point. I know whenever I've moved to a new city in my life, I contacted drummers, man, and that's how you help get rolling. But we'll get to that too. Let's talk about Ed Soph for a moment. He was your original mentor at UNT?
Definitely. And he, worked with me on my touch and increasing my jazz ride cymbal technique and how many million ways I could play the Spang-a-lang, with the amount of space between the Spang and the Lang, and just conceptual stuff, and just was an amazing time in my life, man.
The thing I told Ed I really respect about him is all the great students he's produced, and none of them sound like Ed Soph, and none of them sound like each other.
Yeah, he just had a way about him of encouraging you to follow your path, along with the pedagogical list of things that you had to do at North Texas. Like I was going there as a graduate student, so I was responsible for all the jazz stuff and all the classical stuff. At the undergraduate level and beyond that, we were supposed to do even more stuff like faster tempos and as a grad student. So it was a crazy time of like mixing academia and then the practical side of life, which is, all of us driving down into Dallas to play music.
Good start. Who were your heroes back then? Drum set was.
My heroes have always been versatile guys, like a Greg Bissonette. Like Greg Bissonette to me defines like the perfect working drummer because he could traverse all sorts of working situations. He could play on the soundtrack to The Bourne Supremacy. He can do cues for Friends. He could go on tour with Joe Satriani, play double bass with David Lee Roth, do brush gigs.
Did Maynard Ferguson's band.
Yeah, Maynard Ferguson. And I remember when I was kicking around Dallas, Steve Houghton was like, I sent Steve Houghton my demo tape, and he was like, I wish I'd known you'd play like this. Maynard just needed a drummer. And, and at the time it was like, I think think Maynard was paying something like $250 a week or something like
it's
that.
not
You're
much.
cramped on with 18 guys, and it's like, I don't know, everything happens for a reason. I was actually recommended 3 times to the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, and that was more like 50 grand a year with like a health care plan and a paid vacation, and
It's a
and
tough
we've got
gig though
this-
too, man. You play those
So tough.
They
Yeah.
do two at least 2 a day, many times 2 a day. I think sometimes 3. It's like a 3-hour gig, and you never stop playing. I knew my buddy Eric Hargrove did that gig for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know, I should have done it, but there's a lot of things that like when I first moved to Nashville, I got called to do the Disney cruise lines. Disney was launching a cruise line. I was like, great, I'm going to be the drummer in the main showroom band, and I was like, you know what? I just moved to Nashville to play the music of Nashville and try to do sessions and get a touring gig. So how is me going out on the high seas going to help that? So
Sometimes it's good to turn something down. So you're
Yeah.
in North Texas and studying with Ed, hanging with all these great jazz players, and probably coming up as a jazz player. Why Nashville? Why the country road? Why all that? Sorry,
sure.
that's my mother. Huh?
do you need to get it?
Not now, Mom. No. I thought I had this
I,
turned off. I'm sorry.
That's cool. It sounded like a good tribal rhythm or something.
Yeah, something I generated myself.
Okay. I always fancy myself, I tell everybody I'm an overeducated rock drummer. So I have my master's degree in music education, and I really took the study of the classical stuff seriously. And I'm a student of jazz. I never really saw myself pursuing life as a jazz musician. I'm so glad that I did all that stuff, and when somebody asks me to play, I can do it convincingly. But I just think that what I learned from that just made me a better pop, rock, fusion, country, popular music drummer. I kind of decided, I think, along the way, probably around age 26, that I was going to be a backbeat specialist,
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's really kind of like anything where there's a backbeat, from funk to folk. I was going to try to master those styles, and that kind of led me to I wanted to go to L.A. and play smooth jazz. Smooth jazz was really big in like 96, 97. I was like, man, these guys are wearing colorful shirts, and the mute, they got these cool beats, but they get stretch and they work. I was like, maybe I'll do something like that. Maybe I'll be in the next Spyro Gyra or the Rippingtons or something like that. And then I started asking friends about, hey, do you know anybody who's looking for a drummer on a national level? And my friend said, yes, Trisha Yearwood. She's a songbird. She lives in Nashville. And so I quickly took a crash course in listening to Eddie Bears and Lonnie Wilson and all the guys that I can now call my friends. And I went to Nashville and did all these auditions, and I was like, you know what? People like my drumming in Nashville. I need to move there. So that's what I did. Gave my band 2 weeks notice.
I read that you said that, where to me, if you're going to be, you're not in the game unless you show up to the yard. You know what I mean? You can be a great drummer in Poughkeepsie, but the gigs are not there. So I remember my dad telling me as a kid, if you want gold, you have to go where gold is.
Yeah, it's like owning a restaurant. Location is everything, and you really have to go, swim with the sharks. Be in the scene where all the people are, all the creatives are going to the watering holes, and you've got to go to those watering holes to meet those creatives, to mix and mingle. And so location is everything.
So you had done some interviews, and they liked your playing, but you didn't get it basically because you weren't there. Then when you moved to Nashville, you did something I've never heard of anybody doing, which is put together a rhythm section.
Yeah, it took about 2 years to get us together, but I met a young man named Kurt Allison. I played in his dad's band, and then he introduced me to a young man named Tully Kennedy, the bass player that was put in charge of assembling a young Jason Aldean's band. So we are now at year 20 of playing music together. The first 5 years of which was, us working together and freelancing and doing a million other things, but always coming back to Jason and jumping in a van and playing with him, or doing demos or doing showcases. We probably did about 40 showcases until a used car salesman in California who owned a record label, Benny Brown, said, I will give you a record deal.
Isn't that amazing? I've never heard of a drummer going to a city and saying, I should put together a rhythm section and have that be hired by an artist.
It was really funny. I know people, I'm sure, have done it before, but we grew it to, we really milked the situation where we would get each other hired for recording sessions and showcases and then other bands. And then we grew that into Nashville's first rhythm section production company. And we actually would produce musical artists from the floor. And we had 3 number 1 songs with a couple of different groups. So I think that was the first time that's ever happened, because traditionally producers in Nashville are, guys that play golf, and they they go and they say hello to the artist, they get it started, they go, okay, you're in great hands, and then the engineer produces the record. That was kind of the model for about 20 years, and it was just, we kind of wanted to shake things up a little bit.
Well, indeed you did. And I imagine that you've kept that gig so long because Jason's band came up as one thing that he got famous with, and it was a band, really, right? And not just a hired gun situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, on paper and during tax season, we are hired guns, but very much have so much freedom. We're marketed as a band, and if you come see the show live, I'm up on the video screens a lot. I mean, it's like I'm just so fortunate to be in a situation where we have, creative freedom, and we're encouraged to be the musicians we want to be, as opposed to there are some, chick singers out there that, the management company's just like, boom, they got the thumb on the musicians, and you wear black, you don't say anything, you play those parts. That's no way to live a life. I don't think I want that gig.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of those stories, and they don't. A lot of them don't pay that well either, but let's keep going on.
Yeah, that's a whole other story.
That's another story. Let's talk about your style. You were reading that mostly in Nashville, the hits, everything's like between 70 and 90 beats per minute.
Yeah.
And you need to be damn well comfortable in those tempos.
Sure, yeah. If I play a song that's above 120 in this genre, I'm like, wow. For some reason, it's just really hard. I don't know why it happens, but usually the faster the song gets, the cheesier it gets. There's just like this sweet spot in this genre for storytelling, and it gets a little old sometimes. But I mean, it's every musical genre has a language and a BPM window, and so you just kind of become comfortable with that, and you have to be really creative in trying to figure out ways to traverse that and bring make every song or situation your little Mona Lisa, like leave your little thing that people can remember. And it could be something as simple as just opening the bell of the cymbal, or a little drag, or a floor tom hit. It doesn't have to be speed double bass and chops at 30-second notes. Just something special, and that comes from listening to guys like Porcaro and Robinson and Gadd and Earl Palmer and all those guys that left their mark on songs. Hal Blaine,
Right.
Those are my guys.
Johnny Vodakovich likes to say, "Get out of the drum room, get into the music room."
Yeah, play music. I practice so much and put in so many tens of thousands of hours in a dark room that it feels strange to say, but I would rather play music with mediocre musicians than be alone in a practice room just staring at my drums going, this isn't music, I mean, there's a lot. You have to do that, if I'm preparing for something, I'm reading the chart, I'm working on my muscle memory, I'm getting stuff together to do a gig or prepare for something. You have to do that. But the idea of just going, there's 30 other drum books that I haven't got to, I'd rather go play music with somebody.
Of course, and at the end of the day, that's why you're there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they call you or whomever else is on the gig, because of what you bring as a human being and as a musician.
Sure.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of your terms you throw out. I haven't heard anybody use money beats.
Yeah, the money beats.
What are money beats?
So the money beats are the 5 beats that you have to be able to do in your sleep at any tempo and with any subdivision and at any dynamic level, with or without a click. And it's the entry level into making a living as a popular musician. So
and what are those?
If you sang, it would be boom whack, boom whack, boom whack, boom whack, boom whack, boom 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 boom whack, 4 on the floor. You can swing it 2 ding da da bomb. And so just getting that together, that's not like saying, look, if I learn these beats, I can have a successful career as a drummer.
No, that's the precursor. That's the beginning.
Yeah, so many people want to work on one-handed rolls and stick tricks and speed metal and soloing against left foot clave, and they skip this other stuff where you're going to spend 99% of your time. So I wanted to be an expert at that thing, and then combining that with the idea that I moved to a city like Nashville, which is the songwriting capital of the world. What that taught me was to not think like a drummer, but to put myself in the mindset of the songwriter, the band on the floor, the story being told, and what's going to work on radio. And that's just a language you learn from being in the trenches. And usually the simpler I play, the more jobs I get, the more money I make. So it's just really crazy, because when I was in North Texas, I was studying Mahavishnu, Return to Forever, and the electric band, and I was learning how to play dents. But Soph told me, he said, you never want to be in a situation where someone's saying, give me more, and you're at the peak of your technique. It's better to be able to play dents and give somebody a lot and then have the discipline to subtract. And just year after year, I would subtract and I would subtract and I would subtract, to the point where Nashville taught me how to become an expert at playing a song. And then with that mentality, now that if I go out to LA, I have a little fusion band called Kawanga. I'll play with a group like that, and there's a song drummer, session drummer mentality that I bring to that that'll elicit smiles in some of the other players, because I'm not just spooging all over the drums all the time. Everything is like I'm thinking about, what's this kick drum pattern? How do I lift up and build the sections of the songs? How do I play dynamically? And that came from being a song drummer first.
That's excellent. I think of, Edgar Allan Poe, the great short story writer, said that in a great short story, one more word is too many, one less word is too few.
Yeah.
So that
Beautiful.
kind of plays a part, that works for the song, and not
I loved him, man. I love the Cask of Amontillado and all that stuff.
Yeah, we studied all that. You have I'm writing some notes. Macro rhythm. What are you referring to there?
Yeah, so a macro rhythm is like a big picture rhythm, and when it comes to fills, I do a lot of teaching, and the thing that I notice about drummers of all ages and all experience levels is that they don't have a fill vocabulary that is singer friendly, studio friendly, and radio friendly. They go for the densest note groupings possible, whereas if they would just do their homework and realize how many times Hal Blaine went bop, boom, ba-ba, boom, and what the fills were that Nigel Olsson used, and what the fills that the Motown drummers were using. So some of these macro rhythms could be something as easy as bop, 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 or bop, 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 or bop, ga da ga doom. So 3, 4 EN. So there's so many different ways you could play that. You could play just bop, 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 bop. You could do a flam on the first note, bop, ga da ga doom. You could put little grace notes in between, ga da ga doom. You could put the kick drum in there, bop, ga da ga doom. So just adding roughs, flams, flat flams, putting grace notes in there, putting bass drums in specific places, barking on the hi-hat. The macro rhythm is the basis of all things, and then you can make a judgment call stylistically which one of those things is going to work. Does it have a little bit of like Joey Kramer would go bum, go 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 go, right, just knucklehead, right? And then maybe Omar Keane would have a slight swing to it. And Nigel Olsson would do flat flams, on the big headless toms. So not only being comfortable with what you can do with that macro rhythm, but also knowing your drummers and being able to reference them, and knowing stylistically, oh man, this is a power ballad. I'm going to pull in some of my Nigel Olsson stuff that I ripped off, or this is this kind of a thing. And pulling from those things.
So it would be an essential vocabulary, I guess, for each genre.
And
everybody learns from there. I mean, nobody's completely original, right? It's part of doing your homework to know that when they play that, it fits what this guy did 20 years ago, and I know that because I did my homework.
Yeah, and then when you do it, it's going to sound completely different from all those people. But people will be go, I see where you got that. There's a couple of bands out. This Greta Van Fleet. They're like these kids in their 20s that are wearing like bell bottoms and like big collars, and they're Zeppelin. They're just doing Zeppelin, but they're telling new stories to it. So yeah, to me, musically, there's 12 notes. It's all been done, and we're just kind of regurgitating things. I'm comfortable with that. It's like. I don't mind people hearing my influences. They go, oh, you got that big high sticking thing from Kenny, and then you got this hi-hat thing from Carmine, and you got the showmanship from Gene Krupa.
You say damn straight.
Those are 3 good people to pull from.
Damn straight. Happy to have it, right. You have some thoughts about rim shots.
Yeah, a lot of times, that's kind of like for the music that I get called to play 99% of the time, burying the beater and playing a consistently placed rim shot is just part of my sound. That's kind of where I live. And then, I was talking to Joe Bergamini today about, okay, well, what if you get called for this jazzy type gig or a rockabilly type gig or a gig where you have to control volume? Well, that's where I would use a felt or a wool beater, and I would pull the beater out of the bass drum head, or I would use maybe a ping rim shot instead of a full rim shot, or I would play in the center of the head with a lot of gaff tape and go for the Rumors or Eagles' Greatest Hits thing, and maybe smaller cymbals, and just be able to adjust my touch to things. So for me, I'm fortunate in the sense that I am known for something. Some drummers will spend their entire career being workhorses, being versatile side people, but they're never known for anything. So it's a blessing and a curse that people say, oh yeah, he's the high sticking rock country guy from Nashville. Dude, I'll take it. Great. And then, last week I was playing with the School of Rock kids, so I had to double drum with kids, and I was reading. We read Rush, we read Zeppelin, we read Edgar Winter, and then the next day I did a recording session for like a songbird that was kind of like a Ani DeFranco, Sean Colvin, Lucinda Williams kind of thing. So I had the blast sticks and the tea towels on the drums and the flubby snare drums. And then the next day I had to go play traditional 80s, 90s country music at the Country Music Hall of Fame on a very small drum set, very softly. So 3 gigs, 3 different situations, 3 different musical mindsets, 3 different touches.
Not to interrupt you, the dichotomy there is you have to remain. One of them is, okay, we'll get this right if it takes every penny you've got, right? Show up with 40 snare drums and the other one is, how do you sound? And what you said is you've made some conclusions, you've made some things that are Rich Redmond that you're known for. But inside of that is that flexibility, right? Am I getting that right? There's like a dichotomy there.
Yeah, and flexibility is fantastic because the flexibility will, even if you never became known for anything, that flexibility of knowledge of styles and ability to read music will allow you to do Broadway, off-Broadway, go to Japan, play Europe, do cruise ships, teach, do recording sessions from your home. You'll never miss a meal.
Make a living.
And also that flexibility feeds into me being known for something because it allowed me to be known for something because I sound different from the other guy that's just a country and Western drummer because I studied with Ed Soph and I learned how to play Porgy and Bess and I was in the symphony playing timpani. You put that all into your big bag of tricks, you're going to sound different from the other guy.
Right. Very good point. Very good point.
Yeah.
Let's talk about recording itself nowadays.
Yeah.
A lot of it's to a grid, right? People don't realize when they go see a concert that the grid is not just there for the song to stay where it's supposed to be. It's tied into lighting cues and pyro and effects and sets and all kinds of shit going on. That's all on that grid, right?
Yeah.
So, video. Yeah, video, the whole thing. How does that change your perception of handling the gig?
You know what? We were a really low tech band in the beginning. The evolution for us was it was drums, bass, acoustic, drums, bass, electric guitar. So 3 guys backing up Aldean, and I would take a Tama rhythm watch, and we were still on wedges. So I'd put the wedge over to my right side, and I can hear the wedge through my right ear, and I would stick just a little, $100 Shure in-ear monitor in my left, and I would go into a Tama rhythm watch, and what I was doing is I was helping our band create a feel, create consistency, and to be a slave to the quarter note. And so I was training the guys to trust me so we can play the tempos the same way every night. And then after a couple years, we started getting the in-ear monitors, and then I started taking a shaker sound, and I would run the shaker sound to guys. And at this point, there still was no video or anything. And all these years later, now we're running click from Pro Tools. We have 2 Pro Tools systems that are talking to each other. If one fails, the other one just kicks right in. And there's a lot of guys there's a lot of bands that have backing vocals and percussion and keyboards and strings, and we're still low tech in the sense that most of the songs I'm just playing to like a drum loop, like a lo-fi, and so sometimes you play a big intro and you come down, there's just the verse, and that's when I get to wipe my forehead and put on some Carmax and take a drink, and then boom, I come in for the pre-chorus or the chorus. And that all helps the video guys and the light. They're all syncing to that. So everybody's a slave to that whole thing. And sometimes I feel like we're robots. I just want to tell the bass player, man, this one ballad, I really wish we could push the chorus just a little bit. That gets into tempo mapping and all that stuff. And we're just like, we just do our thing. At this point, the gig has just become like a greatest hits package. Like we play 23 hit songs for Bubba. Bubba's out there, and he doesn't want any tricks. He doesn't want extended solos. He just wants to hear those songs. So the gig kind of evolved from doing covers and getting to know each other and becoming a really tight band to then growing into newer technology. And now most touring levels, bands at a high level, are playing with some sort of digital audio workstation, click, SMPTE. So what that does for the drummer is just you have to have a drummer that can play with a childlike energy and lead and drive and follow at the same time, but still be tight with a click. And that just comes with time in the trenches, really, you know.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Steve Smith went, great drummer Steve Smith, made no bones about being asked to leave Journey years ago because everything switched to a sequencer-based type of music, and he was more of an organic player, and he had to go to school for himself and get that together because it was a different way of approaching the time. Even though it's not necessarily moving forward or backwards in tempo, it's got to be synced. It's got to be spot on, and it was a different thing for him altogether. You didn't have any trouble getting used to that, or it just came with time?
I think I've been playing with a click live now since 1996, because I was in an awesome top 40 band in Dallas called Random Access, and we learned, and we were playing with sequencers and clicks and loops on a Yamaha. It was like a sampler, and so I don't know. That's a long time of playing live with clicks, and the disease is drummers wanting to push things live because everyone's so excited. The other thing that you have to work on is controlling the people in your band. So especially if say Jason is playing, he's singing, and we're playing a stadium, so there's 80,000 people, and he wants to go all the way to the end of the parapet. I have to be able to even though he might be singing on top of the beat, I have to play with a loop. So it does depend. When I had just a dummy Tamarilla watch in my left ear, we could really jump on top and move choruses and stuff. But then once you start passing around shakers and loops, and everybody in the band has their in-ear monitors, and like it's a recording session, you have to be right in the middle of it. So less flexibility. What I do find is that today's younger drummer, their time is fantastic because they've been learning to play music with records that have been fixed and gridded and scrubbed to perfection for the last 10 years, 10, 15, 20 years. So
what do you mean by
their time?
What do you mean by the word? And I agree with you. What do you mean by the word scrubbed?
Scrubbed meaning, so say I go to do a recording session, and everybody on the floor is a great player, and we're playing with a click track. But that's still not tight enough for today's standards. What they do is they pop everything to the grid, where they take a lot of the humanity out of everything and they just make it completely perfect. And what that allows is ease of editing and going between different playlists. So you can say, I love your performance, Rich, but the fill you did going into the bridge on the third take, I want to pop that. So they take it in. And so when they scrub it and they put everything to the grid, it makes that easier. Then the other thing that's happening these days is that we're taking the files from Pro Tools and we're taking the stems and we're loading them into Ableton so we can recreate the record live, and that needs to be perfect, So it's just kind of a different thing. I think Motown would have a completely different feel if it was created and recorded these days.
Exactly.
In this day and age. So.
And that's part of its charm. You listen to that Motown stuff, and it might move a little bit. The horns might be a little out of tune.
And I love it.
Vocals might be out of tune, and it's freaking great.
Yeah, my favorite stuff is some of that early Faces stuff with Rod Stewart and Kenny Jones and those guys, and you could just tell they just got back from the pub, and they're rehearsing the song, but they're like, let's roll tape. And they don't even know it yet. But they kept it, and it became a number one song.
And there's a naturalness to that could be lost, but with the great players, you still have the passion too. Now, you also have to go under the assumption nowadays that every note you're playing on a concert stage, somebody's recording.
Yeah, everyone's a YouTube star now, because everything we do is being captured by some soccer mom or some person. So you really, once again, you can't have a bad day. And I have played jet lagged, with the flu, hungover, food poisoning, and you just have the puke bucket next to you. You take your Humenberg case and you turn it into a puke bucket, and the song, the show must go on. Yeah,
I've done that. Puking in the wings. And then you come out on stage. A quick little story about me. My son is a guitar player, and he was doing his senior recital at Institute of Music he was going to. And my wife's a nurse. And he's got he's sick as a dog. And she says, well, that's it. You're not going. I said, well, honey, you're in our domain now. He's going. He has to go. They're counting on him, and he'll be great. So he goes up there, green, literally green, plays his ass off, and then you go quietly die backstage somewhere. But
it's show business. I love show business. I really do. I feel so happy and honored to be, surviving and thriving in this very, very difficult industry it's been completely disrupted. And a disruption happens every decade. We went from where you go to cassettes and then to CDs and then the DVDs and Blu-rays, and then you got file sharing, and then some crazy German guy developed an MP3, which little did he know that he thought he was making our world better, and now it's like, okay, the MP3 was the death of the music industry. But there is work out there for everyone. I hear so much negative energy about people saying there's no work. Are you kidding me? I was just talking to Joe Bergamini. The guy plays on Broadway. He teaches. He transcribes for a living. He tours. If you are willing to hustle and to be great and to put your name out there, you can work a lot.
That's a good point. I always ask the educators, and I know you're an educator, that question: where are all these kids going now that there's less work? Well, there may be less work, but there's still plenty of work for great, talented people. And there's always room for a great guy at the top, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, now, to no one's surprise, looking at you and listening to you, you're a motivational speaker as well.
Yeah, I started.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, I've always been a teacher. I tell people I have a teacher's heart. It's just you're born with it. It's in your DNA. And I think teaching is great for everyone because it allows you to figure out why and how you do what you do. So you always end up being better at what you do by sharing your gift. And let's face it, sharing your gift, it's one of my purposes in life. I wrote down what my purpose in life is, and my purpose in life is to affect people in a positive way and change lives. And I can do that through education, through music, through entertainment, and there's many branches of my entertainment world. And so as I was taking my message on the road and doing clinics and master classes at universities and high schools and drum shops, I said to myself, I'm going to incorporate some of these life and business concepts that I was a student of, because I'm a big believer and reader of like Napoleon Hill and Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins. I was kind of a student of all those things. And so I just started incorporating those things in my talk so that no matter who came to my event, a parent, an uncle, a cousin, a brother, they can walk away with something and go, wow, that guy was a drummer, but he had a lot of insights about how to have a more successful life. And then I grew it into an acronym, and I love acronyms because they're so easy to remember. You can have a nice positive takeaway, and it stands for CRASH. And so my Crash Course for Success, CRASH an acronym stands for commitment, relationships, attitude, skill, and hunger. So in a nutshell, if you make a commitment to your craft, to your family, to your business, to your community, you're going to be able to excel in life. So making that commitment to your craft, putting in those 10,000 hours, and then realizing that relationships are everything in life, not resumes, not monster.com, but people championing each other. Every gig, every opportunity I've ever had in my life has come from another person sticking their neck out for me, and then me realizing that and then knocking it out of the ballpark for them as a way of saying thank you for thinking about me and giving me this opportunity. And then realizing that attitude is so important. It's like 99% of life, that positive people get more done, they're happier, people are attracted to positive people, and it takes twice as much energy to cultivate negative thoughts. So I just kind of try to stay positive, and I do that by surrounding myself with positive people, reading positive literature, doing things that make me happy, like eating colorful food, exercising, going to see great cinema, having hobbies. And then skill, developing the skills you need to be successful in your chosen field. So as a drummer, that's rudiments, that's reading, that's styles, and then getting your business chops together so you can bring your skills to the world and market yourself. And then lastly, hunger, having that burning desire in your belly to be a successful person. And I tell people that passion is your engine and hard work is the fuel. So if you fuel that engine with hard work, it's so easy to keep working hard because it doesn't feel like work. And then, like Dom says, it's a cycle of self-empowerment. So it's easy to remember, and anyone can use it in any season of their life. And if you want to know more about it, I just send everybody to crashcourseforsuccess.com.
Great. That's what I was going to ask you. And are you part of that thing with Dom and Rick Drum? And they have a...
Yeah, Rick and I have been talking about, doing some things together, and it hasn't happened yet, but we once a year we talk about, we're going to make it happen this year. We're going to make it happen this year. So
well, you're a natural for that group. And the thing I loved about your crash there is it doesn't mean you have to be the most talented drummer in the world to make a living playing music.
Sure. I mean, if you have self-awareness, which a lot of people don't realize, like I realized, I'm loving learning all this stuff from Ed Soap. I love playing big band music. I love going and playing these clubs and playing this jazz music and learning about this history. Is this ultimately my number one wheelhouse? No, my number one wheelhouse is playing a backbeat in an arena for a lot of people and making a song come to life. And I said, that's what I'm going to do. And all this other stuff has helped. So if you're self-aware and you give yourself a lot of tools and then you double down, you have a laser focus on something, and then you figure out how to put it all together, you can have, one heck of a life. You can make all your dreams come true. First of all, write those dreams down, write your goals down, and then get a plan together to execute on these things so you can make them come to fruition.
Last thing I want to ask you about is the responsibility for all of us to do our own branding.
Sure.
Social media is available. I mean, you're big on it, I'm big on it. And it really came up later in our lives than some of these kids. What are your thoughts on social media branding and its importance for drummers?
Yeah, I love it. There's so many drummers and so many musicians out there, and there's so much noise. You have to figure out a way to kind of cut through. And so for me, it was like just sharing insights and tips on the things I learned about drumming, and then cool little memes and takeaways that have to do with my crash concept and all that stuff. So anything about music, motivation, success, friendship, cultivating a career in the music business, that's kind of like where I like to do with my posts. And I tell everybody, look, there's a million carbonated beverages, but usually when somebody wants a soda, they say, give me a Coke. There's a million ear cleaning devices, but someone, when they want to go buy a ear cleaning device, they buy a Q-tip. So what you want to do is you want to have that brand recognition and be known for something. When someone sees Sean Pelton sitting behind the drums on Saturday Night Live, they know it's him because he's really big into forward-thinking fashion, and you can recognize him right away. So just having some sort of putting it all together, so your playing is together, you get your network together of like-minded people that can lift each other up and help each other, and then making yourself memorable, whether it be with some sort of an imaging or your presence on social media. Social media is a free way to promote yourself to the world and be fearless and say, I exist. And this is what I can do to help you improve your life. And when you're helping someone improve their life, you will benefit as well.
I can't improve upon that, Rich. That's terrific. And man, what a delight you are to talk to. You're so positive and uplifting and articulate and certainly passionate. So it's no surprise to me that you are the success you are. I can't thank you enough for doing my show. You're welcome at any time to do it again, okay?
I love it. Thanks so much for having me. I love the blue.
Thank you. And you're just looking for something to make a set out of. It's my practice room, Got electronic drums and a Gretsch kit, and, I've put some lights up, and I got a show. Hey, kids, let's put on a show. You have a podcast, too, don't you?
Yeah, my podcast is Pick Rich's Brain. We have 19 episodes on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and if you go to richredmond.com under the Media tab. Mm-hmm. And I'm just so crazy busy that I always thought to myself, I want to do this at the highest level, and I want to film these things. Because I'm also really wanted to get into hosting like Ryan Seacrest and Mario Lopez. I'm kind of working on that. But I think what I'm going to do moving forward is just go for content. I'm going to try to do at least one episode a week and just go for the audio element. But I'm really enjoying it.
I hear they're looking for somebody to host the Oscars this year.
You know what? Maybe I'll work my way up to that, man.
You'd be a good one for it. All right, brother. I appreciate the talk, and thank you very much. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.